we could run more ads and I would make more revenue, but I was just not loving some of the ad reads I was doing, some of the time it was taking away.
There was an audiobook company that was spending $1 million a month, and they did not care at all about who the creator was. They would just hire them, and they would not care because...
Money in, money out.
Money in, money out. There is one person on the planet I trust for sponsorship advice, and it's Justin Moore. In fact, I did trust him for advice, and it doubled my sponsorship revenue in the next 6 months. Quote, Jay Klaus from Creator Science. So this is the quote you gave me for my book, and it sounds like an update is in order to hear how things are going, what your relationship to sponsors is right now. How's it going, Jay?
It's good. So that was 100% true. Along with increasing sponsorship revenue, there were increased costs that are justified by the sponsorship revenue. But as small teams, we have to make choices. So at the time that we were like peaking in our sponsorship journey, we were selling out inventory in all of our platforms. So newsletter, YouTube, podcast. And since that time, I have reduced sponsorships, not eliminated it, but reduced sponsorships. YouTube is still sold out. Newsletter, I would say we probably fill like 60 to 75% of our issues. And podcasts, I have eliminated sponsorships entirely.
Say more.
I used to work with podcast networks, and they had certain requirements around sponsorship. We do dynamic ad insertion. So all of my podcast episodes are set up to accept 3 pre-roll ads, 5 mid-roll ads split into 2 different ad beds, and 2 post-roll ads. So there are 10 ad units ready to receive ads throughout the entire podcast catalog. And what I found was my show isn't large enough for a CPM-based approach for the revenue I was generating to be worth the cognitive load I was experiencing, especially when combined with like the listener experience. So right now in the podcast, all I do is promote my own stuff. And I have 1 to 2 ads per episode. That outperforms what I was doing in CPM-based sponsorships. And I think...
You track that?
Yeah. And I think has a marginally better listener experience.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, we do 1 integration per video, and then we have YouTube AdSense. That's been booked solid. Newsletters, I have reduced the number of sponsors I say yes to, which has reduced the number of sponsorships that I run. So that's the update. I would say we're probably going to be about flat year on year of sponsorship revenue this year over last because of those choices. So yeah, I feel like we have the best processes we ever had, but still a capacity cost. And the thing about sponsorships that I don't like, if I'm honest, is that I feel less in control of my time and my content.
So you're like being pulled along by the sponsor versus creating and finding a good sponsor for that piece of content.
Because we almost never do outbound because that would be another task, commitment of time. I think it's a huge opportunity. We could certainly do more outbound. But because we weren't doing outbound, we were saying yes to like the best fit sponsorships we had available.
Right.
And we were selling out our newsletters, but there were weeks when like we had 2 newsletters per week, Tuesday and Sunday. Sunday is like my typical send is where I write my best essays. But if we were selling out 2 slots per week, Sunday and Tuesday, I was writing newsletters on Tuesdays that sometimes I didn't really want to do. If we don't have a sponsor on Tuesdays right now, a lot of times I don't write a newsletter. I didn't like feeling like I was creating something for the sake of creating a place to put a sponsorship integration.
For someone watching or listening to this that has the reaction to that like must be nice, Jay. Like I would love to be able to like turn down or I have enough other revenue in other places. At what point in a creator's journey do you think it's wise to start making decisions like you did in terms of like pulling back on like revenue you could be making?
If you don't need the money and the cost of taking the money is higher than the benefit of taking the money. I think we could do more outbound and find better fit sponsors and do a better job of that. I don't think this is necessarily a permanent state. What I do think is permanent is that I look at my sponsorships as endorsements. So I'm not going to accept sponsors because I have the luxury of not needing to.
Yep.
That I don't want to explicitly endorse and not say, here's a message from our sponsor because they paid me to put it here.
Yep.
But say, here's a message from a sponsor that I have vetted and I believe in and I have invested with, or I would put my neck on the line for the sponsor. So even when I had just applied that filter, it drastically reduced the aperture of like who I would accept.
I think that not enough people realize the implicit endorsement oftentimes that you're making. If you've built up credibility over a long time period, we may look at it as a quick payday, or even in an affiliate capacity. If you're saying, hey, go check out this tool, you're kind of saying like, I really do recommend this. Like, you know, if the brand does something poorly, like that person could look poorly on you because you were the person who recommended that tool to them, you know? If someone hacked your Instagram or YouTube account tomorrow, how screwed would you be? Really think about it for a second. You're in the middle of a 10K deal, the brand needs final approval, you go to upload the content, and your account is locked. The brand's blowing up your email, you're panicking, you're trying to recover your account, but by the time you get back in, or if you get back in, the campaign's already closed. The deal's dead, and your reputation just went out the window. I know it sounds ridiculous, but considering that millions of login credentials get exposed to hackers every single year, it's not really something that you should take lightly. And that's why I'm a huge fan of today's sponsor, Bitdefender, the first ever security platform built for keeping creators safe online. They monitor your accounts 24/7, flag phishing emails automatically, and protect your login credentials across all of your devices. And if something bad does happen, Bitdefender holds your hand through the entire recovery process. And it costs just a few cents a day too, which I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty sick deal for what they do. So you can click the link below to get started with Bitdefender or visit creatorwizard.com/Bitdefender.
And I think you can kind of subtly signal to your audience that, hey, I'm not actually endorsing this necessarily. This is sponsored by brand. But the cost of doing that path is to reduce the effectiveness of the brands that you really do want to endorse. So I just think long-term, the association I want with anything that I create and anything I promote to be like, this is an explicit endorsement. And that comes at a real cost, because now the processes are good enough that, especially in podcasting, we could run more ads and I would make more revenue and it would be fine. But I was just not loving some of the ad reads I was doing and some of the time it was taking away. I just decided to turn down the dial. And I think that's just a seasonal thing. Sometimes I turn down the dial. Sometimes I turn up the dial. I know that if I feel the need to drive more revenue this month because we're on a downtrend or whatever, I know I can make more of a concerted effort to drive more sponsorships. And it's as simple as doing more outbound pitches.
Dude, so one thing about me, and I hope it's clear to everyone like watching or listening, is that I am not prescriptive of like there's one way to do sponsorships. Everyone should do it the way in which I recommend. The most important part is that you have a good relationship with doing it. And so for you, it's like, you know what? I'm not going to do sponsorships on the podcast. I'm okay on the newsletter. I'm okay on the YouTube channel or whatever. But like, I just don't like the way I feel when I do it on this channel or this content format. Obviously, at the end of the day, the most important part is that you're doing it in service of your audience. But even to your point, like I even oscillate between like how much time I'm spending focusing on getting more people into the coaching program, and like I'm doing sponsorships too. But like it consistently blows my mind that like even the times when I do outbound, like I was just on a sponsor call on Friday and I was like, you know what, like there's this brand that I feel like I should reach out to. I reached out to them, I messaged them on LinkedIn, hopped on a call, and I asked them about their budget range to do a collaboration, and they just casually threw out, oh, can you send us over a few packages like, you know, around 10K a month? And I was like, okay, that sounds cool.
Sure.
You know, and so like I think that to your point, like there probably is a lot of alpha in picking and choosing sponsors that you would feel great about and who might have healthier budgets to work with you that wouldn't feel coercive.
I also think there's a world where because I am choosy, I can build a reputation for being choosy, which makes it more valuable in a sense to the sponsors. Platforms are also interesting. I don't think that sponsors properly evaluate the value of podcast ads right now, because I can make more money selling a sponsorship for a single LinkedIn post than a month-long campaign on my podcast.
Wow.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'll just promote my own programs in my podcast where people trust me more than anywhere else. They're the closest to making a buying decision.
Is that because you've tried to sell it and they don't value it to that degree?
Well, it's just that in podcasting, most people are accustomed to the CPM model. And the relationships I have to people who are selling my podcast ads work with CPM people. If I were to outbound pitch another brand, and instead of saying, hey, we run a $25 to $35 CPM for our podcast ads, say, how about a month-long campaign? Here's the price for that. If that brand is not accustomed to CPM pricing in podcasting, I could probably sell it for a higher rate. And I've done that in the past.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I stopped working with some of those podcast promotion partners on an exclusive basis, because it's like, you have great relationships, you're bringing great brands, but I can sell to this brand that I have a relationship with on a completely different model and make more money doing it and feel better about the brand.
I think there's a kernel, there's a gem here in that, especially if you look at a lot of studies about the connection that people who listen to you in long form, like podcasts, for example, or even long form YouTube videos, the connection and the trust that you build up with them versus a lot of other platforms is like wildly higher.
Yeah.
And so like it stands to reason, like if you can convince a sponsor like this inventory or this ad read is like actually way more valuable than doing a short form piece of content or something, where a lot of brands I think get tripped up is that they look at short form content and the repurposability of it much higher. So like, hey, if I could run ads with this, I get the content, I could run ads with it. That feels like I'm extending the lifespan of this asset.
The interesting thing is that's just not been my experience in short form, because I've only done sponsored posts on social media as LinkedIn graphic carousels, and the brand has never done anything with that asset.
Yeah.
So, that asset will sometimes get seen by like 20,000 people, 20,000 impressions. What's more valuable though? 20,000 impressions, however LinkedIn defines that, or the podcast, 30,000 downloads where people are getting the advertising message 15 minutes in. I could do it at the front, but like the people who are waiting 15 minutes to get that message, they're like in, they're in, they trust me. Whereas on LinkedIn, like we're getting algorithmic activity here for people who have never seen me before, may never see me again. So it's an interesting place for sure. But podcast advertising, it's just kind of like a mature ecosystem where people know their model. And I don't think it's the right model for my show, but they just have certain expectations. And so
I would say, frankly, the most surprising things that I've learned coaching creators in our Wizards Guild program is that the people who are making really good money with podcast advertising are in super, super specific niches. They don't have very large, listenership on a monthly or average, 30-day download basis. But they're in like a very specific niche where it's not the HelloFreshes of the world. It's not the AG1s of the world who are like doing the CPM model. It's like you said, it's a brand who's never really done this before, but they really see the value in like this particular person. And actually, I feel like that's most people.
I agree, but listen to this. I have a friend who is predominantly a podcaster, and he has enough data from his sponsors and his campaigns to say that his campaigns convert twice as much as other shows that they advertise on. So his thought was, well, let me just charge it double the CPM. And he goes to the ad brokers, and they're like, brand just doesn't get it. We're actually just going to lie and tell them that you're getting twice the reach so that you can get twice the budget because you're going to pay it off and they're not going to care anyway.
That game sucks. I don't like that at all.
That game sucks.
That game sucks. And also, I don't want to play that game.
Yeah.
That game feels not great. I mean, when I ran my agency, like there was an audiobook company that was spending $1 million a month, and they were running ads through my influencer agency, and they did not care at all about who the creator was, who the podcaster was. They didn't care anything about, as long as the demographics were there, as long as it was generally the type of content that they saw did pretty well, as long as the CPM was in kind of alignment with what they wanted, they would just hire them, and they would not care because
money in, money out.
Money in, money out. I understand how that feels really gross to like most creators, and I just don't think it's worthwhile playing that game and going after those very, very large brands.
Yeah, I mean, it works really well for like the top, not even 1% of podcasters, but like the top 1% of the 1%. Because there are a lot of brands who are playing the brand awareness game where they're like, we have a huge budget to spend on brand awareness. We're going to try to deploy this as efficiently as possible to the people who are getting the most downloads. But for people in the middle or below, it just CPM model doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I think that really what I come back to is you were talking about this dial that you can crank up and down. I think that same ideology should apply to the three areas of your business that I think most people should care about, which is your PSA, your products, the things that you directly sell, your courses, your coaching, your books, your consulting, whatever, speaking, your sponsors, which is talking about other people's tools and products and software and so on, and then alliances, right? Other friends in the industry who have programs and books and consulting and things like that. I don't know, more and more I'm feeling like building throughout your creator journey, it's dialing up and down these three buckets constantly forever.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's like a equilibrium that you stay at forever.
I don't think you're ever going to get to like a steady state. I think it's seasonal for the priorities of the business, for your own energy, for what's working. I think those things are constantly in flux, and it just is what it is.
If you are looking at like kind of the future of your business and you're working on a book proposal right now and you're trying to figure out your own balance between your membership community, the lab, and, other courses or accelerators or things that you try. How do you see sponsorships fitting in long term?
I look at sponsorships as kind of found money in my business. And again, a dial I can turn up if I need immediate revenue. I think I can turn that dial in an effective way. The spot I find myself in a lot of times is there's nothing more valuable than my time. And sometimes the economics for what a brand wants to pay for a campaign don't make sense for how I value my time and what my involvement in that campaign would be. So I'm not trying to make them sign up for a campaign that doesn't economically make sense for them, but I'm also not signing up for a campaign that doesn't economically make sense for my time. Sometimes those things are in tension, and when they are, I'm prioritizing my own time and energy now.
All right. If you had to speak into existence a list of 2 or 3 dream brands that you would love to collaborate with, just kind of calling your shot, speaking directly into the soul of the camera and saying, brand XYZ, hit me up, holla at your boy.
Only 2 brands really come to mind, and I have relationships with both.
Okay.
But I think both should be doing more with me all the time. And that is Circle and Kit. So Circle and I just did a big campaign, and I'm excited about it. But I think there's probably no better brand for me than Kit, and I think we should be doing way more all the time.
Well, I'll send you this footage. You can clip it and send it to them. How about that?
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, dude. Cheers. Now, if you're wondering how we got to this point, where Jay finally saw the light and decided that, I want to actually be doing more with sponsorships, make sure to watch this video right here.
Watch it.